Yes.
It's not expensive.
Yeah.
And then the next year her
So I
bags
gave
were
up that
No,
mortgage
gosh.
quickly and moved to Ireland.
some leagues anyway.
I have a Japanese group.
Yeah. Yeah. So there it is. It looks like we have a car coming in. Friends, if you can move off the road, there's a car coming in. Slow down. Please slow down. No, we don't have any, unfortunately. Yeah, one day soon, hopefully, we'll be ready. Everyone, could you clear the road, please? Clear the road. Everyone, if we could please clear the road, the coach is coming in, the horse is coming in. Can we move away from the road, please? Excuse me, could
pallbearers get involved now?
I'll bring them.
I'm one.
Okay. So you want me here? Yes. Nini is in the red shoes. Right over here. Do you want me to bring her to you?
Yeah. Billy.
Billy and Mike.
Hey, Billy.
Hey, how are you? Pallbearer?
Yeah, you too?
You know? We'll put shit.
So this is yours. Excuse me, gentlemen. Excuse me. Things to go over that.
David, you have to see.
This would not be a good scene.
This would not be a good place to trip.
It would be a Larry David show.
Well, when my grandfather was being buried in Belize, almost fell in the grave with him. He was holding on to the. Were you there, David?
Plus, I think I'll turn the phone.
When your dad almost fell in the grave with him for my Zeta's funeral. Oh my God, it was awful. Your dad's funeral was pretty good. I remember when we heard the ringing of the bell. And what was that kind of call?
All phones off.
I know I am, but I look around. We didn't really get it. Married to one of the chefs. Who was the guy who talked? Oh, was it Walter? No, it was
Adam, do we have any timing on it?
Why would Adam be a technical? I'm told because he told me there's always time.
Yes, right here.
Oh no, what you know that happened?
Yeah, it's not the one change the notes an hour. Yeah, okay. Right across.
Is that me? That's Mickey.
I can ask if I hold on to that for me.
I'll just put a note.
Okay.
I gotta emulate your habit.
Oh yeah, I'm working.
How many do you have? Oh, I got. We got the factory. Yeah. It's your head. Like, who makes them? Yeah, I was gonna. Where?
So what's the plan for pallbearers?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. If I could please ask the pallbearers to join me over here at the coach.
Yeah.
No, I just put I've got it. So, Nini, why don't you come stand over here? Right here. We're going to need probably two more. We're going to need two more. Yeah. Yes, it's just wait on me. Okay, I'll get him, okay? Some active lifting.
I'm just holding you.
That's fine. Nini, come sit here. Shoulder to shoulder, you see? it and grab the handle. Heavy.
I'm just waiting.
No, come this way, towards me.
Do you want to turn it around?
Yeah.
Oh, this way.
Up. Thank you, gentlemen. We're passing around some programs. We only made 50 copies. There's clearly more than that, so if you can share. It simply has the Kaddish on it and a poem that I'm going to read.
I don't need my glasses.
You won't need. So, friends, if you can come a bit closer, we don't have any amplification other than my voice. If you'd like to stand behind me, you can. For sure. There's some shade over here by the tree. No, am I in the frame? Okay, thank you.
Talia should be the director of photography. But,
There's a lot of people watching online. I want to make sure they can see.
oh, you're good.
Can the guy in the background move?
Sorry? You want me to move this?
No, you stay there. Guy in the background, move over. There we go.
You good, Tanya?
Yeah.
Is this a union gig?
Art direction.
Me'ayin yavo ezri Sinai Hecharim Me'ayin yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei Shemayim V'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei Shemayim V'aretz. I lift my eyes up to the mountains, and what is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. Thank you all for being here. When we were speaking on the phone yesterday, the family wasn't sure just how many people would show up, as evidenced by the fact that I made 50 copies of the program. We look around and we see this circle of friends and family that has supported each other so much, particularly in this last bit of time. They say that you don't want anybody to show up at your funeral, that you want to outlive all your friends. And Eric clearly accumulated so many friends in his life, and here you all are. It is a testament to that connection and that loyalty that he had and shared with each of you. And this family is going to need that support from you more than ever before. Jewish tradition teaches us to turn to the Tehillim, to the Psalms and the writings of King David, to find in those ancient words his journal entries, his diary, words of comfort and consolation for our present circumstance. It's quite amazing when you think about it that we can read something that was written 3,000 years ago and it can speak to us as though it was written for us in this moment and today. But such is the nature of life and of death. There's never been a generation that hasn't experienced it. There have never been people here that haven't known it in their own lives. And so we draw on that experience of our tradition, even as sorrowful as it is, even as painful it is, to know that while we don't get over mourning and grief, we will go through it. And like the generations before us, we'll come out on the other side. And we'll come out better and more whole if we have others to walk in the valley of the shadow with us. And so your presence here now and in the days and weeks to come is critically important for the family and for each other. I want to share with you a few readings from those Psalms. One, Psalm 15, David asked the question, who at the end of their life merits the reward of living on in heaven? Whose life is measured for good? Adonai, mi yagur b'ochalecha miishkan b'har kodshecha, God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? And then listen to David, King David's answer. Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract it, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken, shall dwell on God's holy mountain. Could there be a more apt or more fitting description of our friend than those words from thousands of years ago? A mensch is a mensch in any generation, and Eric was a mensch. Another reading from our tradition, this one more familiar, I think. Those that were able to get a copy of the handout, it is inside. It's Psalm 23. And if you'll read together with me, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God maketh me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God leads me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. I wanted to share with you a letter that we received, a chesped, a eulogy really, from Eric's good friend, Zach. You want me to read it? Sure. And I spoke with Zach this morning. I know he's watching online. And I think he shares the sentiments of many of you, that there is a part of him, as he shared with me, that is being buried here today as well. So close is the connection that all of you had to Eric. So Zach wrote the following. Dear family and friends, it is with profound grief and deep sadness that I am attempting to write this eulogy for my most precious friend, Eric Shipman. Whatever I say cannot do full testament to the worthiness of this man. I write in appreciation and as a celebration of his life and the love and kindness he bestowed on all of us that knew him. Our world will not be the same without him in it, but I am confident that the smiles on the faces of his children and grandchildren will help alleviate our grief in the course of time. Were I to write about my friendship and life experience with Eric, I could fill a joyous book that would be titled Beyond Gratitude but Totally Perplexed. I am beyond grateful for being blessed with a lifelong diamond of a friend such as he was to me. I am totally perplexed at the suddenness and the surrealism of his being torn from us by his abrupt passing. He was a rock of strength, understanding, honesty, wisdom, compassion, humor, and moral courage to me, and to his family as well as those who knew him. I was filled, as most of us were, with his positive, hopeful enthusiasm at finally receiving a donor's kidney. Eric was a humble, positive, brave, and fiercely good man. In our Jewish faith, we are taught to respond with Hashem Dayan Ha'emet, or God is the ultimate true judge. When we first hear of someone's death, it reminds us that life is precious and that we don't call all the shots. There is a higher divinity at work that we cannot fully comprehend, and ultimately we all submit to it. Nevertheless, we were all dumbstruck at the news of his death. Eric was always a pleasure to be around. He was a wonderful, good-natured personality and a very positive outlook on life. He took things from the good side and was a very keen sense of humor. He drank from the cup half full. I never heard him complain or brag about himself. He was one of the most humane, hardworking, decent, and intelligent people I have known. We were brothers from different sets of parents, by choice, not by birth. He was always available to render advice, emotional support, and good cheer to a friend, and especially to me. And boy, I am sure made use of him. Thank heaven he didn't bill me. He was not someone who would not put a friend on hold while he attended to other matters. He was empathic and had the best fairness and judgment. I recall when he telephoned me a few years back and I sensed a sadness in his voice. I asked him what's going on, and he lamented at not being in Toronto a few weeks prior when his mother was sick because he had a great deal of work to complete, and informed me that she had just passed away. He didn't get a last chance to speak with her in his life. He urged me to always take every opportunity to visit my own mother, who was ailing, and to travel from New York to Toronto and not think twice. I followed his good counsel, and it served me well as usual. I met Eric over 50 years ago when we were finishing junior high school in Toronto. We became fast friends, and quickly. We came from different backgrounds in the sense that his parents were secular, Canadian-born, and mine were European and traditional. We merged our worlds together. We traveled far and wide in our teenage years, from Vancouver Island to the Himalayas and quite a few places in between. We took care of each other during our long trips and travels of friendship. We lived and worked on a kibbutz in Israel together, which was a happy, very happy time. Eric had a strong sense of Jewish identity and culture and was a Zionist in his heart who believed in the mission of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. In later years, Eric met the love of his life and moved out west with Nini, first to Calgary and later to Vancouver. At first, I felt abandoned, but quickly learned that we would always stay connected. I also got Nini as part of the bonus package of having Eric as a best friend. Nini did a great job of looking after him and shaping Eric in ways I could never imagine.
She tried.
I tried.
The fact that she could also prepare a salmon dinner in a dishwasher did not go unnoticed to me, and spoke well of her suitability as a spouse to my dear friend. He loved salmon. Eric and I spoke very often on the phone, long distance, especially as I could call him late at night in my Eastern time zone and not wake him up. He was always available. He spoke to me constantly about how blessed he felt to have Nini by his side and what an amazing sense of humor she had. Yes, she could upset him at Bloomingdale's, etc., on occasion, but she was the penultimate love of his life. He spoke to me endlessly about her and her shtick. He took tremendous pride in his daughter Talia and the boldness of her undertakings. He likewise quelled and marveled about the latest undertakings of Noah. Lately, he was radiant and full of joyous thanks for beholding his 2 grandchildren. When he spoke of them to me on the phone, I could feel my cell phone begin to levitate from his inner happiness at the thought of them as he spoke. Nini, you were the best part of his life and brought him wonderful children and grandchildren. He adored you. I hope to see you and the children in the not-too-distant future. My thoughts, tears, and love are with all of you today as we mourn and lay Eric to rest. May his soul be bound up in a brilliant Gan Eden. May he serve above as good advice for those of us left behind. With hugs and love to the entire family from Zach, David, Zane, Batesville, Ontario, July 12th.
Beautiful.
Noah.
First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for the outpouring of support and for those in attendance both here in person and the many who are also attending virtually. Please bear with me. While I inherited many characteristics from my dad, his composure is not one of them. Rather, I take after the flimsy tear ducts of my mother, who was nicknamed by her French family La Fontaine. Eric was an incredibly devoted dad. He was an early morning riser who would finish several newspapers cover to cover before making breakfast almost every day for me and Talia. He taught us how to ski, skate, think critically, and play the air guitar to his favorite Rolling Stones albums. He was the once cool guy who had such long locks his father would jokingly introduce him as his son in hair. He fearlessly hitchhiked across continents and played guitar in a band, wearing leather jackets and smoking Du Mauriers, but gave it all up to freeze his ass off on the sidelines of our countless soccer, ice, and field hockey games. He put in crazy hours at the office, often pulling all-nighters before deal closings in support of the quality of life he wanted his family to lead. He was also incredibly loyal, patient, and loving husband to our mom, Nini. While he could have used some improvement on certain aspects of one's so-called love language, his score in one category, acts of service, was absolutely through the roof. This didn't just apply to his family, but also to his friends and clients, who really became one and the same as his clients came to know him as a warm, kind, and compassionate soul they wanted to hang out with outside of the office more than in it. Not something at least stereotypically associated with transaction-focused corporate lawyers. I'll stop here as I want to leave enough material for the Shiva tomorrow night, where we encourage everyone in Eric's life to share memories of him. We appreciate you all taking time out of your busy days to spend it here with us in recognition of our dad, husband, brother, and friend, who we lay to rest for the longest afternoon schluff he's taken to date.
I'm going to read a short letter from my Uncle Lorne, who was my father's youngest brother. I am deeply saddened at the loss of my big brother. I wish I could reach out through this computer and hug and hold all of you. Unfortunately, I cannot attend this week and hope to plan a visit in the future to grieve our collective loss. If there's an opportunity to share these words, please do so. Familial relationships are complex and complicated, especially when you factor in the passage of time and distance and missed opportunities as we age and try to live our lives as best as we can. They ebb and flow, change and evolve, but the memories stay for eternity. I can unequivocally state that from when I was 5 to 15, my big brother was the most important person in my life. He helped shape me into the person I am today. From camping in the ravine behind 17 Delbank Street to open houses at Mackenzie where we played floor hockey and basketball in the gym, to the greatest ski day as the Chinook came through as we shared a day on the slopes at Sunshine Village on a trip to Calgary. On a trip to Calgary, he took such pleasure in his role as a mentor to his kid brother. The only blemish in our relationship is that he could not prevent me from becoming a Leafs fan. I was reminded of this special relationship, ironically, this past Saturday night at a small home poker game. As we were cashing in our chips, one of one of the players, as he looked at my large pile, remarked, "How long have you been playing poker?" I responded with a slight gulp, 50 years, which is hard to believe since I'm only 39. When I was 8 to 9, Eric would bring me along to annual trips to Zach Riviet's, who we just heard from, parents' cottage at Rice Lake, and they felt it was their duty to not only teach me the rules, but the strategies on how to win. This led to a lifetime passion, including having my best friends in high school ban me from our bi-weekly games because they were tired of losing their money to me or furnishing the kitchen when I went off to Western and a poker debt was paid to me by boxes of pots, pans, kitchen utensils, cutlery, plates, and glasses his parents were discarding. This special bond was forged and will never be broken, as he treated me as part of his life, while other teenagers might have seen me as a nuisance. I became an appendage, and I will always hold these memories dear and loved. I was dealt a royal flush as a big brother.
Thank you, Tom. I'm aware that you're all standing and the sun is on some of you, but if you'll permit me just a few words I wanted to share. Eric, as he would proclaim, was not a shul goer. So I didn't get to know him from Shabbos and holidays, but only through stories and reputation, and particularly so last night when we spoke on the phone. And there were two images of Eric that I took from our conversation that will stay with me as we remember this unique and wonderful and kind, empathic and loving man. One is Eric the lawyer, who would sweat every last detail professionally, fighting hard for his clients, a man of action who would often say, just make a decision. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, just let's move forward already. That was his attitude towards the kidney transplant. Just jump right in, let's do this. He was packed and off to the hospital within minutes when they finally got the phone call. Similarly, in his practice as a lawyer, he was not someone who wavered. He was very straightforward, no in-betweens. He was a competitive hockey player when he was growing up in Toronto with an aggressive style, which made him arguably the best player in the Jewish Hockey League, which in Toronto says more than it would here. The second is Eric the hippie, who once had hair in every direction and all the way down his back, had a peace sign belt buckle, and traveled the world, protests over peace and war and environment, down to earth, easygoing and caring deeply about his family. A deeply devoted husband and father who had a beautiful marriage to Nini that would be 45 years this summer. At the core of both images was a man of warmth that was magnetic. It drew you in. It was how he operated. He was very welcoming and accepting, and Nini, so were you. He didn't judge people. What mattered to Eric was the way that you treated people. He was extremely loyal and close to his friends and treated you all like family. And so many of Noah and Talia's friends, he also treated like family. If they were close to us, then they were close to him. Eric didn't care if you had money or things. He was not materialistic. And this was probably a product of his parents, who were extreme socialists, as was described to me. They used other words too. Deeply involved in Peace Now in Toronto, among other things. And they were atheists. They had a deep yearning to involve themselves, though, in Jewish life and cared deeply about peace in Israel. And Eric carried this passion for Jewish community forward from his parents. But while they were atheists, Eric was not. He believed in God and was proudly Jewish. Both Nini and Eric came from not particularly religious but Jewish homes and wanted Judaism in their own home. They were actively involved, as we know, at Temple Sholom for many, many years, making sure both kids had a Jewish education and were raised in a Jewish home. I know that was important to you both. Noah and Talia, you shared with me images of your own and memories of your dad. Waking up to him early in the morning, sitting with his coffee and his newspaper. He loved being on the Sunshine Coast or Mexico, where you would find him with a book in his hand. News, political, historical, biographical, nonfiction. He had a huge appetite for knowledge and information, to which Nini added with a smile that I could see through the telephone when we talked, that he also just had a huge appetite. Nini loves cooking, and Eric was her best customer. Some of his last words at the hospital before he had surgery was to complain about the size of the piece of salmon and the watery nature of the cranberry sauce that was atop it. He loved toast with butter and cottage cheese and a slice of cheese on top of the butter and the toast and the cottage cheese. And he loved smoked meat, Jewish deli food. His 60th birthday was a Jewish deli theme. Nini, you and Eric, I know, met in Toronto. You were just 23 or so. Set up by a relative, and you totally fell in love with him right off the bat, you said. Married 3 years later. Been on lots of adventures in your life together, and you love to try new things. Moving from Toronto to Calgary because it was the best choice for his career at the time, and then on a trip to Vancouver were drawn by the beauty and the lifestyle. Talia was just 4 and Noah just 1 at the time, and they really didn't know anyone here. You left behind wonderful friends who have flown in for this funeral or are watching online. Moving to Vancouver was really a chance or a risk. But the kids feel so grateful and lucky for the choice that you made. Growing up, they went to the beach and skiing and the islands and camping and exploring and took in all the advantages and feeling lucky to be so connected to this place and to nature. And Nini and Eric, you made that happen. The holidays were never conventional, not big hotels, but rent a place in Mexico. Eric would travel to meet up with Nini perhaps in North Africa and Italy, and then they would travel the world together. Parts of the world that no one ever really traveled to very much. And lots of memories of these adventures. As you said, Nini did the food and Eric handled the camping. And through it all, Eric and Nini have kept all of their friendships, as is evidenced here, and developed new ones. A strong, supportive circle that has been so compassionate and present for this family through his health crisis in every possible way. In the Torah, the death of Jacob is recorded in a rather peculiar way for the way we record death in Torah, where most often our sacred text proclaims, and so died, and the length of their life or years was so and so years. About Jacob, the Torah declares, and Jacob lived. The commentators say, of how few men can that be said, that they lived? For it was not a death notice, but a life notice. So too we can say the same about Eric. Eric lived. He lived life fully, lovingly, and meaningfully. He made lasting friends, raised wonderful children, and did it all with a partner who loved him more than life itself. And he loved her back. In the process, he made a difference in this world through his work and his passions. Eric lived. And we who got to live alongside him, we were blessed to do so. May his memory be a blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Friends, there's 2 prayers that we need to say. One is El Malei Rachamim, a prayer for Eric's soul. I'm going to chant that for you now. It's not in your handout. And then we will, after the family places earth, recite Kaddish together and then help them fulfill this mitzvah. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfecha Shechina, Im Kiroshim Utechorim, Kizochar Rakim Maschilrim, Et Nishmat Asher Ben Yitzhak Mendel Vesara, Shechalal Olamo, Baal Harachamim, Yastirechu, V'seta Kanafav Lolamim, Vayitzur, Bitzur Chachayim Et Nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Eric, who has entered eternity, O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say together, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, we're going to lower the casket now. I'll ask you to remain silent as we do so, and I'm going to gather with the family to tear kriya, the ribbon reminder of mourning. Talia, if you could come over here for a second. Eternal God has given and wisdom beyond our understanding. God has taken us. Blessed be thy glorious name forever and ever. Blessed be the judge of the king. Come forward now and put us forward. And we say Kaddish together. Friends, if you'll join me, please, we're going to recite first a poem and then Kaddish together. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need from me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. The Kaddish prayer is on the other side of the page. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalmad yivrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayachon v'yomechon u'payeh l'chol beit Yisrael. V'agala u'vizman karev v'yimaru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei omayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit alal shemei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Ushbechata v'nechemata. Damin ron be'alma v'yimaru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru. Amen. Osei shalom v'romal. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al yosh beit tevel v'yimaru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. Comfort this family and all the bereaved, and we say together, Amen. Friends, I'm going to invite you now to help fulfill this mitzvah on behalf of Eric and the family. Yeah. To be those gentle hands that tuck him in. The hearse is going to leave now, so if you could all please move away from the coach so that Yosef can get out safely without hurting anyone. Those that have programs, if you'd like to keep it, you certainly may. If not, it's called Shemot. It has God's name on it. We don't simply throw them away, but we treat them as sacred texts, and the proper way to dispose of them is to bury them. So I'm going to ask you please to place it in the grave if you don't want to take it home with you. So we surround Eric with words of Torah. Careful there.
Do so much. I know. Go figure. Care of his house.
Great guy. He's a great guy. He was a great guy.
You're welcome.
I'm young, but I pretend to be one.
Cereal.
Friends, if you're waiting, there is room on the other side. On the other side.
It's pretty good. Other than that, it's okay. You know, just over the brink. Just positive, just barely positive. Give that a good time. No, it was nice. Yeah. You're going away.
Friends, if I could have your attention for just one more moment. Friends, that concludes our service here at the cemetery. There is a reception back at the synagogue at Temple Sholom at 7190 Oak Street. There's limited parking in the parkade, but parking on the streets around. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at Temple Sholom, there will be a Shiva Minyan. Rabbi Bregman will officiate. Thank you so much for being here. I'll ask you please to join me in traditional words of comfort for the family. If you repeat after me, Hamakom Yenachem, Etchem, Batoch, Sha'ar, Avalei, Sion, Yerushalayim. May God console you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. May Eric's memory always be for a blessing. Amen. Thank you for being here. Please drive safely.